heal our relationship, Brother Kennedy and I, and I'm hoping that your wisdom will inform probably some really strong actions. Thank you, sir. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for the time.
Thanks, Senator Booker. Senator Kennedy?
I didn't know he was going to get a rebuttal so quickly.
That Senator Booker has a silver tongue, doesn't he? He's good. I know Mr. Long and I know Mr. Edwards. I don't know Mr. Hodgie or Judge Maddox. Congratulations to all four of you, though. Judge Maddox, I think I'll start with you. I just want to talk about the law a little bit. I stipulate that you will follow the law and apply it to the facts of the case as you are guided, including but not limited to precedent. I thought the Supreme Court just handed down some really interesting decisions. One of them has not been talked about much, but I found it fascinating. Tell me about Moore v. Harper. That was the independent state legislature theory. What's that all about?
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
Yes, Moore v. Harper concerned whether or not the Elections Clause in Article 1 of the Constitution gave the state legislature sole authority to regulate elections for federal office in their states without any judicial oversight. Mm-hmm. And the Supreme Court held that the Elections Clause did not preclude judicial oversight of the legislature's regulation of federal elections.
I can tell you looked at the case. Here's one way of looking at it. Every state has a state constitution. And I want you to tell me if you think I'm wrong here. Every state has a state constitution. And in fact, many state constitutions preceded the federal constitution. And some of the provisions in our federal constitution were copied directly from state constitutions. And as I read Moore v. Harper, what the Supreme Court is saying to a state legislature is, look, yes, Congress gave you the power to draw congressional districts, but you've got to do it consistent with your state constitution. And so the state courts get to weigh in. And if the state courts don't render opinions that are consistent with the federal constitution, then the federal courts get to weigh in. What do you think?
I believe that that's a fair reading of, or maybe perhaps reading between the lines of that opinion. That particular question is not one that I'd considered previously, although I have reviewed that opinion.
Yeah, I just found the whole case very interesting because the theory of the plaintiffs was that state legislatures can do anything they want to do with respect to congressional reapportionment because Congress gave them power. But it ignored the role of the federal judiciary and the state constitutions, which, anyway. Mr. Hodgie, tell me about, I need to get a life, I guess. Mr. Hodgie, tell me about this Waters of the United States controversy. What's it all really about?
Senator, I'm not, I've been an attorney for 12 years with the Navy, and I've practiced in government contract law for a long time, and I've worked on those kinds of issues for the last almost 12 years. I haven't encountered that particular issue that you're referencing.
Okay. All right. Tell me, this will be my last question. Tell me, doesn't strict liability seem inherently unfair to you?
So my understanding of strict liability, Senator, is that there's limited circumstances for when it's applied, my job...
Like what?
Excuse me?
Give me some examples.
Like in product liability case,
yeah.
For example. And I think the idea of strict liability is under those limited circumstances to encourage the right sort of behavior for, let's say, a product manufacturer to not create a product that's going to kill a baby, for example, that severe consequences have to ensue.
Well, I'm not saying I disagree with you, but tell me, how does it comport with due process? I mean, this is basically, some would argue, this is basically a legislature saying, hey, if you do it, you're automatically liable. You don't get due process. You don't get to defend yourself. There are no defenses. What do you think about that?
Well, my understanding is that strict liability comports with due process because you have the right to be heard in court. And it's, I think, a good example of the balancing of the branches of government from that perspective, because it, like you said, takes Congress's perspective into consideration as well.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Kennedy.